Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Melissa. I am the owner and artist here at the Top Drawer RVA located in Richmond, Virginia. I'm also a Dixie Belle brand ambassador. Today's project is this worn out old nightstand. It's kind of like in between a washstand and a nightstand size, kind of a little on the small side. In pretty rough condition. I'm pretty sure that this little piece was handmade at one point. So when I took off that bat wing hardware, you can see where the original hardware would have been with some fairly large holes. That meant we had a little bit of repair work to do on this piece. As always, begin by cleaning your piece inside and out with white lightning and give it a rinse with water. I removed that hardware and got ready with some tape on the backing piece so that I could fill it with my Dixie Belle's mud. Taping off that hole on the backside allows me to fill it in quite deeply with the mud, and when this mud is dry I can sand it back to flat so we can get ready for paint. Well, hello Facebook. How are you today? It is Melissa from the Top Drawer RVA coming to you live from the dining room floor where we get together every Wednesday at 3 p.m., sit on the floor and play with some paint, and I have a new project today. So welcome. As always, if you are joining me and you don't happen to see me look at your comment and you have a question, feel free to drop it in below. I will come back in afterwards and answer them for you. I tend to do a lot of talking and a lot of teaching and a lot of getting dirty with paint, so I don't see a lot of the comments as they fly by, but I'm always happy to answer them after we are finished up with our live. And if you don't yet follow me over on my own Facebook page, you can come follow me. I did link it in the description. I am the Top Drawer RVA. What's RVA, you ask? It is Richmond, Virginia area. So that is where I'm located. And I have this little weird dresser. Okay, so I shop everywhere. I shop auctions, yard sales, Facebook Marketplace. People give me things. Sometimes I come home and there's furniture in the driveway and I don't even know where it came from. This little beauty was an auction piece and she was very cheap. Now, I think she was cheap because she be rustic. She's rustic, y'all. Like when I say rustic, it's a nice way of saying she's pretty beat up. It is a little crooked on this drawer. All I need to do is actually put a tiny little glide on this side. You can buy these little plastic kind of doodads that you can put in to help your drawers slide a little smoother. So once I put one on this side, her drawer will be even. I removed the original hardware because it was my least favorite hardware in the entire world. Not original to this piece. This is batwing hardware. This is a faded kind of brass look, very 1980s to me. If you know me, I usually use the hardware that's on here, but you can see these damages that I've filled in. At one point, this had a very large hole in the middle of every section where there was probably a wood knob. Back in the day, they used to make these wood knobs with a very thick kind of base that you would screw into your piece. So that's what was there. They had a hole there and then they had these covering that hole. So these are going bye-bye. I'm getting rid of those. I don't like the look. And since this is a rustic piece already, I'm going to go very rustic. I went to my local Hobby Lobby. They had these on sale for like $1.74. Super cute, right? Very rustic, totally fitting with this piece. So I grabbed some new old hardware and we are going to paint it. Now, when you see me paint all different styles, Dixie Belle has 3 different kinds of paint. We have silk paint, which is a nice, smooth, self-leveling paint. Silk paint has that built-in top coat, that built-in primer, and it gives you a really glowy finish. Silk paint is my go-to for like a one-color transformation, okay? But for me, I like to put silk paint on a smooth, nice, even surface. And this little baby is not that. We also have regular Dixie Belle's chalk mineral paint, which can go on anything, and I considered that for this project as well. But I couldn't decide on a color. So when all else fails and you have a piece that's pretty much handmade, I would guess. I'm guessing handmade. Pretty old from the back of it. It looks pretty old, but also very heavily textured with old pieces of, like, you can see the thickness of this varnish. I mean, hello, look at that. That's crazy on there. That means I'm going to do Terra for texture. We're going to paint with Terra Clay paint today, my most favorite of the Dixie Belle paints. And the reason why I like Terra Clay paint is because it retains a thickness. So if I stipple it on and apply it nice and thick, it's going to keep that thickness. You saw me last week work on that beautiful secretary with the green Terra Clay paint. We pulled a lot of the paint back. We really worked on that. Y'all, that piece is finished. looking like a $1,000,000. And if you missed what the final result looked like, I already put it up on my YouTube. So go check out last week's project on my YouTube because you will freak out. It turned out so good. I was so happy. And Terra Clay paint is very much an artisan paint. I like to get in here, use a lot of brushes, play with that drippy, thick texture, and create some magic. So when all else fails and I want to sit on the floor and be artsy, Terra Clay paint is it for me. So today we're going to use Terra Clay paint. There is 18 colors in Terra Clay paint, but for today's project, we're going to be using neutrals. So when I do a neutral grungy blend like we're going to do today, this is as neutral as you're going to get from me over here at the Top Drawer RVA, because I am not a black and white painter. I am not a neutral kind of a girl, but this piece is going to be like rustic and neutral. So look at the top. I'm keeping the top because can you see how pretty that original wood color is? The top of it's actually in quite good condition. There's not any really big cracks. There's no problems with it. So I'm just going to tape off the edge. I'm actually going to leave the top as it is with that nice kind of walnutty stain, and we're going to paint the base today. So we're going to work on this middle drawer right here, and we're going to figure out the plan for this piece. The interior is not so sexy. It's not so great in there. So I have a feeling I'm going to actually just paint the entire drawers as well. And when that happens, I use up the colors that I don't usually use, like bright blues or bright pinks or crazy yellows. And I'll do that on the entire interior of this piece just to give it some new life. So let's jump in, shall we? All right, so this is Terra Clay paint. This is Onyx. When you see me using Terra, you're going to hear a lot about texture with Terra. I really want you to look at the thickness of this paint. This is a clay-based paint. This is amazing paint to use. It has low VOCs. It is a natural product, eco-friendly, comes from the earth, nice and thick. So I also like to use chip brushes when I use Terra, or a natural bristle brush. You can see how this one has been stained by previous colors of Terra Clay paint because the pigment in Terra Clay paint is super rich. This is washed out. This won't cause me any problems. This is actually just stained this color because I used it a lot. So let's jump in. Onyx is black, right? Onyx is like the darkest of the clay paint. And when I do these looks on textured, damaged wood, like this piece has literal staples hiding in here, holding it together. When you see me using Terra Clay paint, you're gonna see me doing a lot of this kind of application. Okay, we're gonna stipple on a lot of the paint because I'm creating tiny little peaks and valleys inside the look of what I'm doing. I'm also going right over top of this area that I filled in with Dixie Belle's mud because there was 3 big holes. And it's funny because the new hardware, where did I put it? The new hardware that I picked out, I don't even know where I put it. Oh, it's over there. The new hardware that I picked out probably would have fit directly in the old holes that were there, but I filled it in before I bought the hardware. Dun, dun, dun. So I'll have to drill new holes, which is fine. I didn't know what was going to happen with this piece. So I filled the holes and let them get dry a couple days ago in preparation. Sometimes I wait for like the motivation and the inspiration to come and just hit me in the head. But I literally am basing this entire piece off of Terra Clay paint because of the texture in the paint, because of the lumps and bumps and weird little staples and bruising that's all over this piece. I want to really just kind of work with what you got, right? Work smarter, not harder. I want to create a beautiful neutral ombre blend. So why am I going so dark on the edges? Well, you can see me really stippling on this paint, right? Really pushing it down and creating those peaks and valleys. What that's going to do is when I build layers and remove some of the paint, this is kind of like reverse shading, right? The dark is going to peek through the lighter colors that we add in. So that, my friends, is Onyx. Let's move into Desert Tan, which is more of a grayish, but more of a warm color. And again, let's just stipple this on. No real rhyme or reason other than I'm building some texture onto my piece where there really wasn't any texture before. Working with what we got on this piece. Working with what we got, because she be damaged. She is not a very smooth piece. I think I'll do a lot of wet distressing on this piece as well. I do like this shade of wood. I believe it is pine underneath here due to the lightness of the wood when I scuff sanded it back. I cleaned and scuff sanded this piece just to make sure that my paint will grip very well. And the wood color tells me that the lightness of it, the whiteness of it tells me it's probably pine. So even though it's an old dresser, it's not like a super duper high quality dresser. I'm going to stick with the fact that this baby was probably handmade at one point and varnished within an inch of its life by the look of the edges and how thick the varnish is on there. So we're going to stay rustic. So this is Desert Tan over top of Onyx. Now, this obviously is not what we're going to deal with. I love it when people are new and watching me paint with Terra because they see this and they panic. They look at this and they say, she has lost her ever-loving mind. What is she doing? But it's a process. Terra Clay paint is a process, right? We're gonna layer. So let's watch how this piece dries, because when the Terra Clay paint is wet, it is very, very rich. When you seal your Terra Clay paint, it will come back up to this kind of richness. But the drying of the Terra Clay paint makes it very light. It gets very light. So we're going to dry this Terra Clay paint in order to work on the next bit, which is adding a lighter color over top. So I'm going to get this dry-ish, and we're going to work on adding another layer over top because I want to create some depth and some dimension from something that really wasn't there before, if that makes answers your questions, makes it a little easier to understand. You can see how much lighter this gets. When it gets dry, don't get too close, you'll bubble your paint. But I'm going to go for heavily distressed, and I want to kind of dry this first layer as much as I can. All right, so now my first layer is on here and it's fairly dry. Let's move into the lighter colors. We're going to move into Moonbeam, and we're also going to move into Prairie Dawn. Now, my Prairie Dawn, she is well loved. There's some lumps and bumps and chunks in there, but that's okay because I actually have a new one on the floor. This is my old one that I keep on purpose. When I say I like to layer my clay paint, it's okay if it's old and crunchy in this jar. You can kind of reconstitute it with water, but I like these lumps and bumps and chunks, especially when I come in and start to add my layers, because I'm going to start to pull it back, and if there's any lumps and bumps, what happens is you can really kind of expose what's underneath. So let's take this color, which is a lighter color, and start to kind of drop it on here and see what happens. It's not going to stay perfect and white like I've got it here, but I want to really just kind of get it on here thick and chunky to start to play with some texture. Remember, we're doing a heavy rustic neutral vibe. I might even come in here and add like keyholes or something even after it's finished, and then start to do some drippy wax. But for now, I just want to start to play and see what kind of look I can get of covering the dark, drying it up, and then starting to move it around and pull back what's underneath, right? Because this dark, what's underneath, is going to pull back and show me. It's going to reveal itself when I wet distress and work on these areas. So again, patting it on, not being very neat and tidy. If anything, the messier you are, the more free you are with your Terra Clay paint, the better your projects are gonna turn out. Trust me on that. It's your place to lose control. Lose control. Give up the control a little bit. Give yourself a break and just have fun. Have fun playing with your paint, because honestly, life is too short to be bored. Have fun with what you're painting. Get messy. When you see me sitting on the floor in here, I originally started sitting on the floor because it's just safer down here, because I drop paint everywhere, I spill paint everywhere. If I was standing up tall or like working on a desk, y'all, I don't know what would happen. I would have a much greater mess zone on the floor. So I like it down here. It's safe. Nothing really gets spilled that far, and if I drop something, I'm pretty close to the ground. It's not going to be a problem. So let's pat this on, thicker in some spots, thinner in some spots. This is the beautiful Prairie Dawn going on over top of, going right on over top of the Onyx, which is that black that you're seeing, and then a little bit of the Desert Tan, which you see as well, peeking through. So let's just keep plopping that paint on. And we still have another lighter color, which is Moonbeam. For now, I'm going to get this on, and we're going to hit it with the dryer again, and we're going to start to make some magic happen. So let's get this dry. So while I'm nice and close to my camera, I can see your questions. Anybody have any questions for me at all about Terra Clay paint or about anything in particular? I should have made sure to grab a spatula while I was sitting on the floor this close. Let's see if I can find a spatula closer. I have a feeling. Oh, here's one. Perfect. I like these little plastic spatulas, so when we start to pull back the paint, we can really see what's underneath. I see Donna watching. Hello, Donna. So this piece, this well-loved rustic piece, is going to get even more rustic. I almost wish I had like apothecary hardware because it tends to really give it that kind of really old world look. And I really like it, but I don't have any. I'm trying to use what I've got. So I just grabbed that hardware when it was on sale at Hobby Lobby. Okay, that's fairly dry. Fairly dry. So now you have a couple of different options here. This here is fairly dry to the touch, right? This spatula is plastic. You can start to scrape off a little bit about what you did. Remember we talked about having those layers poke through? I also want to see a little bit of the wood coming through. So you can start with this and start to really like scrape back and start to reveal what's underneath there. See how that starts to give me that really beautiful look? But this isn't done for me. I want to come in with my Moonbeam. Now Moonbeam is like the whitest of the Terra Clay paint. I'm going to take a brush. It doesn't matter if you use the same brush or not. I kind of want a long flat brush. So I'm going to just reuse one of my brushes. I'm going to take the Moonbeam and we're going to cover this a little bit. Not fully, more like a dry brush. I'm going to start to cover up the areas that we did this, all of this texture on, with the white, with the Moonbeam. So the Moonbeam's going to go on the top and we're going to start to pull it across. And we're going to bust out the water in a minute too. This is a really simple way for you to get a really deep, dirty, aged, grungy look on your furniture. Trust the process. I always say, trust the process, because I know that there's still some doubters over there on the online world, some doubters that are watching me wondering, what has she done? She's lost her mind. I see a brush hair, which really doesn't matter, but I think that I'm going to take it out. So I'm taking that Moonbeam, which is the whitest, and I'm just depositing that color. Next up, I'm going to take my rag. This is an old t-shirt. And you can either spray your rag or you can start to spray your piece. Remember I said that we're going to start to pull back some of these layers? Let's start to make some of these layers poke out a little bit more. So you can spray onto your piece. You're able to move back some of those layers and kind of like see what's underneath. See how that black is poking up from the inside? This is where the black is going to peek through. So you can do it this way by tapping it. You can also get in here and really dry this. Let's dry this section right here and then we'll focus over here. You can really dry this and then we're going to scrape it back with my little plastic spatula. How we doing? We're hanging in? I see Cynthia watching. How are you today, Cynthia? So this little beat up piece of furniture is going to get even more worn out and beat up. We're really gonna heavy duty distress it. We're really gonna heavy duty pull back these paint layers. We're gonna be adding, I like to add like a little bit of brown. I grabbed some pine cone, which is always like a nice brown color. We can use that. I'm gonna take my spatula now and we're just gonna start to change it up. All right, so we're going to take the spatula. Let's start to maybe scrape some of this paint off. When I get messy over here, we get real messy. Like my floor, my feet, everything gets super dirty, but that's okay. So I want to see wood. I want to see distressing. I want to start to see some of those layers. You could choose to use a metal spatula if you want, but this one is plastic and it's a little bit more gentle. If you get too much junk on there, you can wipe it off. And you choose how much you want to take off. How much age do you want to see? I find, for some reason in my area, again, I'm in Richmond, Virginia area, the heavier, the more distressed, the more like really old a piece looks, the faster it sells for me. Remember we redid a piece here a couple weeks ago that was blue, and I took it apart and I added a barnwood top that was like a raw, rough wood on the barnwood top, and I added Terra Clay paint on the base, and I added that like apothecary style hardware from Undead Furniture. That thing sold so fast, so fast. So can you see how much this is changing now? Can you see the age that's starting to happen? What do you think about this? Are you pro like heavy duty distress, or does this drive you crazy? Because some people can't handle the almost like the lack of control that starts to happen when you do this, because you don't really get to pick, right? You're just going over like the lumps and the bumps and the little chunks of Terra Clay paint to really pull back what's under. So you don't really get to pick what's peeking through unless you're really laying your colors down strategically, which I did not on this piece. We just did dark to light. It's obviously heavier over here on the edge. I'm actually not minding this. Do you see how distressed and pretty that starts to look like? It starts to look like authentic distressing. So this is the original. This is what we're working with now. What do you think about this? Throw me some hearts, show me some love. I can see some people watching. I'm covered in dust on the floor over here. You should probably cover up your brand new paints if you have new paint sitting on the floor like me. I really don't want to get this all into my Moonbeam. But I'm going to just sit on the floor and start to scrape it away. Let's start to move everything around. How much do you want to show? Do you want to show a ton of wood? Just a little bit of wood. Do you want to reveal the black, then scrape a little bit lighter? If you scrape a little bit lighter, you don't go down to the raw wood. You just get that pretty black coming in underneath. Looks great, doesn't it? Do you like this? Is it your style or no? It's my style. And like I said, for some reason, well, I know the reason, it's because it always looks gorgeous. Terra Clay paint and this textured look sells really well for me. It looks like an old piece of barnwood, doesn't it? See where this side's not distressed yet? And then this side is like heavy distress. And you're not locked into doing this with a spatula either. You could totally do this with, a wet towel, with a wet rag. It's up to you. But I like to really mash it up and really pull back that paint. Like if you take this instead and you want to use your finger, so say you wanted to see some wood up here, you could really just rub and rub and rub until that wood peeks through. But can you see how that wood peeks in? It's up to you how much you want to rub off. I like the scraper. I like the little itty bitty parts of what the scraper's showing me underneath. It is rusty crusty, love. It's so funny. I always say that, rusty crusty. Let's dirt it up. Let's make it rusty crusty. It's just such a fun look. And this piece is already so, I don't know, this piece is so rough to begin with. Let's just go with it. Let's just go with the flow. There's no rules in painting. You're not locked in to only painting a certain way. You can paint whatever you like. What do we think? Do you like this, or is it too much for you? I'd love to hear about this in the comments below, because I always like to hear. I know I have a lot of furniture painting friends that watch with me here, and I like to hear what's working for you in what area. Like, does this sell for you? This heavy distress kind of like really, really fun barn look? Or is this something that your clients are like, too far for me? Because for me, this works. Now look at that handle. So pretty. So now you just have to do some more fun things with this. So say you wanted to bring another element in. I like metallics and I like browns. I like to sometimes keep things on the cool side or the warm side. So I like the warm tones of the metallics. Let's take my little spatula. Let's blot it off some because it's covered in junk. Hello, dirty hands. Let's dip it ever so gently into the pine cone. Can you see the brown? And let's start to maybe add some warmer elements by gently pulling another color and adding the brown you're just gonna warm it up slightly. You're just warming up those edges. You're just adding one more little element of texture and paint. This is pine cone. This is not Terra, but this is a really pretty brown. And by pulling it in and dragging it across, you're able to really get some gorgeous texture. Can you see how that really adds a little bit of warmth to the edges? You can also take this if you'd like, and you can spray it and really drip it and start to make some little runs happen. And you can control it if you don't want them down there. You can definitely tap it up. I like drippy runs. I like rusty, crusty furniture, as April said, rusty crusty, my fave, it's the fave. So this is what we're working on today. We're gonna take this piece from brown wood to a really pretty, worn out, almost like so far distressed that it looks industrial, doesn't it? Like it's past farmhouse. It's past that. We're past farmhouse over here. This is not farmhouse rusty crusty. This is like almost like an industrial, sat outside in somebody's shop and I gave it some love. So I don't know, I make stories up as I go along about furniture. I'm making it up as I go along. If this was blue, I would call it like dragged up from the ocean, mermaid style. Like this is my favorite. This is my favorite way to paint. Creative, using your expression, making something happen where it just wasn't there before. Taking this piece that obviously somebody made, handmade, right? We pretty much are like 100% sure that this is handmade. Old pine, there's some staples in here. There's some heavy drippy varnish. I had to fill in a lot of holes, and we're taking it from plain to this. I love it. I love this. Do you like this? Also, FYI, all of this little wood that you're gonna see peeking through is going to accent the top, right? Because the top of this piece is staying this wood color. I'm not going to do anything to the top. So it's going to actually have some really nice wood tones peeking here, as well as coming in on the top. Do you want to come in nice and close so you can really see some detail and design? What do you think? Throw me some loves, send me some hearts, show me something. Let me know that you're in on this vibe, because this is my vibe. This drippy, crusty, rusty deliciousness. I like to say my furniture is delicious. Another thing you can do, let's see if it'll work. It might be too dry. You can take your painter's tape, or if you have stronger tape, watch this. You can take some tape, we can stick it on. You can give it a rub. Where's my spatula? Spatula! So you can rub this tape on here. And if you pull it off really fast, what it starts to do is pull off some of the paint that's on there, giving you a more natural kind of distressing. So by doing that and pulling off, you're going to get a lot more of these great little, almost like divots, little divots in there that are going to give you a really nice natural distressing look. So you can really scratch it on. And when you pull it off, it's just taking off layers of paint, showing what's underneath, giving you the option to really show that Terra. Can you see how it does that really pretty little patina? Love it, love it. Hey Diane, thanks for watching. So should we do one more? You want to do one more drawer before I let you go? I do have to be the mom today and pick up the kiddo from school because she refuses to take the bus. I mean, partially my enabling and my problem because I pick her up. But I like to spoil her. She's my baby. She's my last baby. She's definitely a little spoiled because her brothers are 10 years older than her and they have moved out. So she gets all the love when I would have just told them to suck it up, sister, take the bus. She does not get that. I pick her up. Mom love. Let's see. So good tip, April. Are you talking about my tape tip? So if you had like some industrial kind of heavy duty tape and you did that with the tape, it's going to work even better. But it just gives us such a much more natural, Like the scraper does a good job, but when you do it with this tape, just that little bit of patina that it gives you, it just takes off like just enough of the top layer just to give you that really pretty little patina on there. So here's the Onyx up here on this little drawer. Okay, let's go in order. So after the Onyx, we moved into the Desert Tan, which is kind of like the brown, has a warmer tone. I'm gonna go right over top. All I did to prep this wood is use the mud in the holes, right? Remember there were some really big holes there, and I cleaned it with White Lightning, and I did give it a sand scuff because somebody was very heavy-handed on the amount of varnish that they put in on this piece at one point. It's like, it's a little chunky with varnish. Okay, so there's my first layer. It's as easy as this, you guys. There's my first layer. Let's get it dry, because remember, these layers need to get dry in order to move on to the second layer. If this was not on live, I would just obviously work in sections, waiting for it to get dry. But because this is a live video and I'm trying to show you all the things all at once, this is the best way for me to get it done. So this is Onyx, this is Desert Tan. These are all clay paint. If you haven't heard of clay paint, it's Dixie Belle's newest paint. 18 beautiful colors. All gorgeous, natural, eco-friendly, very low VOCs, very thick, chunky artisan paint. Like, I mean, we did this in what, 10 minutes? You can't get that with any other paint. It's really cool. Oh, hey, Patty. Patty's watching. Isn't it neat, Patty? I love it. You know this is my favorite look. I'm a rusty, crusty lover. Love some depth and dimension. So, Onyx, Desert Tan. Now we're going to come in. I've got my well-loved chunky jar of Prairie Dawn, and we're going to just continue the process. You don't need to be as thick with this one if you don't want to be, but I'm going to just kind of smush it on there. The thickness, when you push that tape on, that thickness is what kind of comes off, right? Because it's still wet. This is like a very thick, porous paint. So working in these layers kind of shows you a little bit about what's underneath, what's left on there, all the little peaks and valleys. But listen, I know from the videos that I do on here, I often get the question or the comment, I can't do that. That looks too hard. Anybody can do this. You're not painting easily. You're not going nice and smooth. You're not filling in the blanks. You're shoving that paint on, right? You're getting chunky on here. You're just shoving that paint on your piece and causing this beautiful distressing to happen. And all of this black that you see peeking through on the bottom over here will look even better when I seal it with my Terra Seal, because that black is going to just really pop. I'll obviously be using Gilding Wax. You know I love some Gilding Wax. And I will also be using probably brown wax on this piece, because I'm leaving the top of this piece natural. So I'm just drying. All right, so let's move on to our last step. Remember, we're going to go into the lightest color, which is my Moonbeam, which is the whitest of the Terra. And this one's going to go on a little bit thinner, right? We're just going to start to really kind of, we're dulling everything that we did. We're kind of making it a little bit more uniform. Whoop, drawer going to fall out. There's no stops. There's no runners on the inside of this drawer. This is just a old school wood on wood. Okay, so there's my white, right? Loving this, super cute. Let's dry this. I love it when the wood peeks through like that. And I love that effect from the tape. I just think it looks so much more natural. That patina right here, it just looks so much better than, you know, when you take sandpaper to it. That's the magic of clay paint, is really pulling back these layers and showing everybody what it can do. Remembering this piece is like not, it's got staples, it's got chips, it's got, I don't know what's that. Somebody obviously repaired something before I even got to it. It's been through a little bit of a war itself. But look at that beautiful hardware, that kind of iron colored hardware. See that? Really pretty. It's gonna go right there. It's gonna look so good. All right, so here's my spatula. Let's move the paint so I don't spatula this in. You guys wanna come in nice and close so you can see exactly what I'm up to. Plastic spatula. Again, you can find the spatula and all the things I'm using on the Dixie Belle Paint page. Let's start to scratch off and remove some of our layers. Ooh, still a little wet over there. Let's dry you up a little bit more. So did anybody get a chance to see the finished product from last week's project that we worked on together? I know Patty saw it. I might have sent Patty a picture just to say, hey, girl, I know you're watching me. Look what I'm doing. Patty got to see the finished product before anybody else did. But if you need to see that finished product, you can go find that on my YouTube channel at the Top Drawer RVA. I am the same name across all social media platforms, making it easy for you guys to find me. That piece from last week is kind of my new fave. Although I say that every week. Every week I have a new favorite. I'm a little fickle. I'm a little fickle. I like to love the newest thing. Let's really scrape up here and see what happens. I mean, why not? If this piece is already beat up like it is, if it's already uneven and rough and crusty, let's make it even more. Let's just work with what you got. Let's see if the tape trick will work over here. So we're gonna get out our masking tape, which is on the floor, of course. Let's see if we can get some really good pullback with our tape. I'm gonna put it, now remember I have mud here. Here, I have mud here. So I really don't wanna do it over here where the mud might show up underneath. I'm gonna scratch it on. Look at that, so good. Look at how good that is. You guys, I just love playing with Terra. Like, I wish more people would try it, because I think that the more people that try it, the more converts I'm gonna have. I'm making you all like come in and be my Terra tribe. Let's do a little pullback over here. So push that tape down, right? Remember, this is just painted. This is not cured. This is still cold to the touch. This is still wet underneath. Pulling that tape off. See how it pulls it off? It just pulls it off in the best looking patina. I don't know why, I just love dirty furniture. I think it's because it's interesting, right? Everybody used to do the whole sandpaper thing and scratch off the edges. That's not my vibe. I don't like that kind of look. I like a more of a dirty look than like a distressed look, if that makes sense. So just pulling off, showing, see how it's lovely, lovely, showing me everything that's underneath. So now we're gonna grab this spatula, the same one. I'm gonna dip a little bit into the pine cone, okay? Not a lot, just a little. And we're gonna come in and we're gonna start to warm up the edges. Let's take some of this pine cone. See how it's hitting all these little peaks? Remember we talked about Terra and texture? So it's hitting all those little peaks and valleys, and it's gonna make that happen. Now we're gonna also take this and we're gonna run it a little bit. Touch it. Get your fingers all up in it. Let's start to move some of that around. It's dripping like right on my leg. I'll be covered in paint and water. I don't even care anymore. I go out like this now. This is like, if you know me by now, this is how I go to the grocery store. Full lipstick, face makeup, because I'm here live with you on the page trying to look cute, but also totally covered in paint. I used to have a pair of jeans that I wore for the longest time. When I would do lives, it was always the same pair of jeans till for some reason they don't fit me anymore. And I had the biggest paint. I sat in paint and it was like this big red paint blob right on my back, and my daughter would always be like, "Are you wearing that out?" Like mortified, and I'd be like, "Yep, sure am, sure am." But yeah, Mama outgrew those pants a little while back. So let's see. Hey, April, what is she saying? She says this kind of design is more natural than doing it just on the edges. Totally, totally. Because how distressed I want this it wouldn't look natural if I only did it right there. Or if I just gently sanded back, the edge is going to be too defined. It needs to be more like dragged and kind of pushed off. I got to be a little careful now because I did spray some water, right? Like I don't want to, this paint is reactivated by water. So if I do a lot of pulling back now, it's going to get pulled off too easily. So I actually want to touch it, pull some of those edges off, use the tape to pull some of the edges off. It just gives it more character. It just gives it more of an interesting vibe. So that, my friends, is as far as we can go today. Stay tuned. I will finish this up. This is fast. This is fast. You could do this in a day if you want. What I would recommend though is waiting to seal it, because I am going to go heavy on the water, heavy on the drips, and heavy on the pulling back. It's going to take a long time for this to shore up, to cure, and to get hard. So I'm not going to seal it. What's today? Wednesday? Probably till Friday or late tomorrow night. I also have a fan on the floor that I'll blast it with the fan the whole time. So what'll happen is it will dry and get hard. I just don't want to come in here with my sealer and reactivate everything I just did. I want to keep it looking like it does now. I like this. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but nor am I. I like to be a little wild and wacky when it comes to paint. But no joke, every single time I think I take something too far with Terra, it's the first thing sold out of my booth space. Every time. Every time. I have nothing right now in Terra in my booth because it's all sold. I have other things that just haven't moved yet, but when it comes to Terra Clay paint, for some reason, it just sells really quickly for me. I think people like interesting rather than really boring. I think that they want to be wowed by the strange and unusual, and why not? It's still neutral. It's still going to fit in any kind of space, and it's still going to have that nice rich wood top. So I don't know, I'm just going to keep doing it till I get tired of it. And can I tell you, I'm not tired yet. I'm not tired of it yet. I have not yet gotten tired of Terra. If anything, Terra is where I go when I need a little bit more inspo, or I'm feeling artsy, or I want to really just create something magical. Terra is my go-to paint. So I hope you enjoyed my little tutorial today. Don't worry, I will keep you posted on how it is going and how it is looking. This is really only the first step. I like to layer and design. The piece from last week has gone a whole nother way. We saw how that happened. I ended up stenciling it and aging it and scraping it and sanding it. I was stained green for days after last week's piece. It was not coming off. So stay tuned. I'll be back and you will see the finished product soon. But you have my permission to get in here, play with some paint, push it around, create some texture where there really wasn't any before, and just have some fun. Have some fun. All right, I will see you guys next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. I continued the same process of applying the paint in like 3 thick layers and then pulling it back with a spatula as well as my masking tape to cover the entire part of the bottom half of this washstand. So once I finished covering the entire base of this little dresser, I was ready to seal it. To seal this project, I used my Dixie Belle's matte clear coat from the Terra Clay paint line. You could also use the Terra Tough if you prefer. This paint is clay based, so it's going to absorb the finishes in a different manner than regular chalk mineral paint. So be prepared to use the top coats that are advised through the Dixie Belle Paint Company. Remember that this paint is reactivated by water. Using the Terra Seal in the matte or the Terra Tough needs to be applied gently. You see me gently brushing it on with a chip brush. This is just to not reactivate that original paint on the piece. So after that original base coat of clear coat dries, you see me again going very gently here to get that first layer on. You can be a little bit more heavy-handed after that first coat has dried and sealed in your paint. You'll also see as I go along that the clay paint darkens and deepens in color back to that original wet looking finish when you apply a top coat. I then came in and removed all the tape I had around the top edge to protect my original finish on the top piece of the dresser, and I started in with my gilding waxes to deepen and darken around the edges and hardware. So this drawer was not sitting very straight. It's a pretty easy fix by adding a small little plastic glide that sits on the base of the drawer. So you put it there in the opening, and then when you slide your drawer back in, it's going to be even. You can build them up as well. I ended up using two to actually make the drawer more level. I then added some cute little cast iron keyholes to give it a little bit more detail in the middle of the drawers, and those drawer pulls went onto the piece. I really like the rustic finish of them. FYI, they're from Hobby Lobby. They were on clearance for like $1.74 a piece. I ended up actually spending more on hardware on this piece than I did on the actual piece of furniture at the auction. And since my clear coat has dried now on this piece, I'm going to come in with some drippy wet mousse. I have a container of gemstone mousse that's dried out, and when I reactivate it with water, it gives me like just the proper amount of grunge on the front of this piece. I also use my gilding wax in black and a little bit of water-based Bastang wax around the edges as well. And that was it for this tiny little piece. I absolutely love the finish of Terra Clay paint. I love the texture, I love the staging, and I love the design elements on this little dresser. On the top of this piece, I just used a little bit of hemp oil to shine it up since I left it original, and we were finished. What do you think of this cute little project? Stay tuned because I will definitely be repeating this look again in the future.